Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're tackling something pretty much all of us have to deal with at some point. Being wronged. And more importantly, figuring out how on earth we're actually supposed to move forward. It's a heavy topic, for sure, but it's incredibly important. By the end of our time together today, we're going to understand two very distinct, historically profound frameworks for dealing with the pain of being hurt.
I want you to really put yourself in this scenario. Imagine someone you completely trust just betraying you. Maybe a close friend spreads lies about you. Perhaps a spouse breaks your trust, or a family member wounds you with words you'll simply never ever forget. When we face this kind of profound hurt, let's be honest, our first instinct is absolutely not compassion. As human beings, our first instinct is justice. Sometimes it's straight up revenge. We replay the conversations in our heads over and over. We imagine proving them wrong, and we sit around waiting for karma to finally catch up.
Now imagine asking two of history's absolute heavyweights how to handle that exact pain. On one side, representing classical philosophy, we've got the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, and on the other, representing faith, Jesus of Nazareth. What the source material reveals here is that surprisingly, they actually agree on a lot. But where they disagree, that one major difference changes absolutely everything about how we approach healing.
Okay, let's dive into this. How should we respond? Because before we can even compare Stoicism and Christianity, we have to look at the universal problem of unresolved resentment itself. Psychologists observe that unresolved anger literally keeps our emotional wounds alive. It forces us to relive those painful experiences repeatedly. We need a real solution here, because holding on to this pain does something terrible to us.
You know, there's this brilliant old metaphor, the burning coal. You'll find it across a bunch of different traditions. Imagine picking up a burning, hot piece of coal with the intention of throwing it right at the person who hurt you. Who gets burned first? You do. Bitterness works exactly the same way. Every single day we refuse to let go, we're the ones continuing to carry the fire. Ironically, the person we end up punishing the most with our resentment is ourselves.
So let's look at the first major ancient framework for dropping that coal. Section 1, Solution A, Stoic Emotional Mastery.
Over 2,000 years ago, the Stoic philosophers figured out a truth that we still rely on today. We cannot control what happens to us. We can only control how we respond. Which brings us to this foundational quote from the Stoic philosopher Epictetus. He said, "It is not events themselves that disturb people, but their judgments about those events." Let's unpack this for a second, because it's incredibly powerful. Imagine someone insults you. According to Stoicism, the insult itself doesn't actually create your suffering. It's your interpretation of the insult that does the damage.
By simply changing your judgment, you reclaim your inner control. Instead of allowing another person's terrible actions to dictate your emotional state, you take the steering wheel back. Stoicism understands that holding on to anger is ultimately irrational because it just keeps you chained to the person who hurt you. In this sense, Stoicism is really teaching emotional freedom and self-preservation. And honestly, that is a genuinely powerful and healthy response to being wrong.
But right where that philosophy stops, our second framework begins. Section 2, Solution B, the Christian Grace Standard.
To really grasp this perspective, we have to look past just internal emotional control and look at a stunning real-world application of radical grace. Back in 2006, a completely devastating tragedy happened when a gunman entered an Amish schoolhouse in Pennsylvania, tragically killing 5 young girls. The whole world was shocked by the event, but you know what? They were even more shocked by the Amish community's response. Many members of that community actually visited the shooter's grieving family. They offered practical support and publicly expressed forgiveness. This profound act didn't erase justice, and it certainly didn't deny their immense grief, but it was a very deliberate choice not to allow hatred to define their future.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the massive shift in motivation. This right here is the core difference we're highlighting today. Stoicism encourages forgiveness because carrying anger is unhealthy for you. It's all about self-mastery. Christianity, on the other hand, teaches forgiveness for a totally different reason, because God first forgave us. The entire motivation shifts from internal emotional control to extending an external act of grace.
And Jesus actually explicitly raised the standard of what this looks like. There's the story where Peter asked Jesus how many times he should forgive someone, and he suggested 7 times, which honestly sounds pretty generous to most of us, right? But Jesus answered, not 7, but 77 times. The absolutely crucial point here is that forgiveness isn't some metric we count on a spreadsheet. Under this framework, it's a posture. It's something we are meant to become.
And the greatest contrast with the Stoic approach is probably found right here. While being mocked, beaten, and crucified, Jesus prayed,
"Father, forgive them." Think about how wildly that contrasts with the Epictetus quote we looked at earlier. Jesus didn't wait for an apology. He didn't demand they somehow earn it first. He extended mercy while actively suffering. The source text notes that this is a level of forgiveness that philosophy alone really struggles to explain.
Moving into Section 3, Boundaries, specifically forgiveness versus trust.
We absolutely have to clear up the biggest misconception about forgiveness, because this is the exact thing that holds people back from actually doing it. Forgiveness is not the same thing as trust. Believing they're the same is a massive misunderstanding. Forgiveness releases the bitterness internally, but trust requires consistent evidence of change. If someone is abusive, forgiveness does not mean you have to remain in danger. Even Jesus recognized when others' hearts were untrustworthy. You can completely forgive someone while still maintaining firm, totally healthy boundaries to protect yourself.
But look, even with healthy boundaries in place, we've got to acknowledge why this whole process is just so incredibly difficult. Our brains are literally hardwired to remember painful experiences. From an evolutionary perspective, remembering danger is what helped human beings survive. But emotionally, that instinct traps us in a resentment cycle. Every single memory reopens the wound. Every replay strengthens the anger. We are literally fighting our own biology when we try to forgive.
Which brings us to our final section: how to actually practice forgiveness. So, how do we actually pull this off? If you're struggling to forgive someone right now, let's walk through these highly actionable steps together. Step 1. Acknowledge the hurt honestly. True forgiveness is never about pretending the evil wasn't painful. Step 2. Separate forgiveness from reconciliation. Remember what we just talked about. Not every relationship should go back to the way it was. Step 3. Actively pray or consciously work to release the bitterness, even if your emotions haven't quite caught up to your decision yet. And step 4. Recognize it's a process. Some wounds heal in a matter of days. Others take years. Give yourself the grace of time.
Let's bring it all together and synthesize what we've learned from these two monumental perspectives. Stoicism teaches emotional mastery. It says, rise above your anger. It's about protecting your peace. Christianity teaches a transformed heart. It says, love even those who hurt you, reflecting the very heart of God. Both are profound, but as you can see, they offer completely distinct paths out of the pain.
Because ultimately, choosing forgiveness, it absolutely does not excuse what happened. It doesn't mean the person who hurt you is right. It so powerfully refuses to allow the past to own your future. It interrupts that nasty cycle of resentment so that instead of being a prisoner of yesterday, you are finally free to build tomorrow.
I want to leave you with a final, somewhat provocative thought to chew on today. Based on everything we've looked at in this explainer, from the burning coal to the Amish schoolhouse, what do you think? Is forgiveness primarily for the person who hurt us, or is it for the person choosing to forgive? I would love to hear how you process this one. Jump down into the comments and share your thoughts and your own journey with this. It honestly might just be the exact encouragement someone else needs to read today. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one.